Well, let's see. Is it working? Good morning, peoples.
Hello.
Kind of like one of the reasons I wanted to talk with y'all today is pretty much because somebody sent me this video, and it's this born Amish guy, totally. Yes, he's experienced some shunning. He's from a different community than me. But at the end of the day, some of the things he says in this video have really been kind of bothering me a lot. And so I have with me Emma today, and Emma and I are going to watch this video and we're going to talk about shunning.
Yes.
You are a member of.
We got started at the beginning, apparently. You want to say anything, Emma, before we start?
I'm kind of looking forward to this, and I'm kind of not. Um, from what you've already told me, so yeah, expect me to swear and yeah.
Yeah.
So when you are a member of the Old Order Amish Church and you leave, the Amish Mafia will hunt you down and they shun you. When I left, I tried running from them. I moved from Indiana to Idaho, hoping that they wouldn't find me. However, they did. I escaped them for about a year and a half, and then they found me and they put me in the barn. They shunned me.
Liar.
Now, a lot of you guys are wondering if I'm being shunned, why can I still see my family? So let's get into that.
Okay, so why is he using a picture of Lebanon Levi from the Amish Mafia?
Yeah. What's potato mean?
I'm so confused on that. That makes no sense to me.
And did he say he was put in the barn?
Yeah.
A particular barn or?
No, the bond is like that's their official like word that is pretty much like disfellowshipped.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. Shall we continue?
If you hear noises, it's just our demon cat, Pixie, who is never in this room unless I'm in here shooting video. So I apologize. I will introduce you guys to her here in one of these videos here shortly. So now she's eating cardboard.
Okay.
Why? Really? You gotta eat cardboard? What else do you want? Say hi to the camera. Yeah, there you go. You looking at them? You see all those people watching you? Oh, you want to get down? Okay. So let's get into the shunning part. What I said about the Amish Mafia is not true. There is no Amish Mafia. That show is completely made up. So anyway, yes, I was shunned for about a year and a half. And then that's it. So what happened was I joined the Amish church and then I left. And when you don't attend, after you join the church, when you don't attend communion, the communion church that they have twice a year, when you don't attend that 3 times in a row, they assume that you're not participating anymore and they shun you. So that is what happened to me. I moved to Idaho.
Let me just interject here. That's some communities they'll shun you after you don't attend church for a month or something like that, or even like a couple months. So that practice varies widely between different kind of like, I'm guessing it's similar to Jehovah's Witnesses where they have different practices within the halls. Is that a thing, or did I imagine it, Emma?
No, their shunning is like an actual standard level. Some members will still choose to talk to their family, but they are at risk of being disfellowshipped and shunned as well. So it is just like a blanket rule that if you're shunned, that's it.
Gotcha.
There's not really any variations.
Well, the shunning itself, I don't really know how to show the variations between like different communities. Like I know my one friend, so they didn't attend church for 3 months, and then ministry like shunned them. Had nothing to do with communion. Or like another one is if you like don't want to be Amish and you stop wearing your Amish clothes and you like start living more English, like they'll like shun you for that. Like it's really mind-boggling. But like as a standard, most of the former Amish community is shunned
Right.
to some extent or degree. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue.
After leaving, and I obviously didn't attend their community church 3 times in a row. So the bishop of that church called me up and said that we have to shun you. We have to put you in the barn. And so they did. So let me clarify here. Let me clarify that our community was a less conservative community, and the shunning was not nearly as bad as some communities can get. I have no experience with those other communities, so I can only share with what I've been told about them, which could be true or false. I can't prove it. And another thing is the bishop that did shun me and the ministers behind him could not have been better men, right? I still look up to them this day. They're phenomenal. I can't speak highly enough of them. They are good men. They believe what they believe. They do not like shunning people. They did not want to do that. And I felt bad for the bishop that he had to do what he had to do that, right? I felt bad that I put him in.
What? You didn't have to do anything.
The bishop didn't have to shun you,
They choose to do that.
right?
Wow.
And like, you know, when you start talking about how much you look up to these men and they were such good men and all this other stuff, you know, it's and then you say like go along those lines, isn't that kind of gaslighting yourself?
You're victim blaming yourself.
Yeah?
Definitely, like, yeah. Like, oh wow. I kind of feel sorry for him though that he's made himself to feel so guilty about what he's being punished for, thinking basically that he deserved it, I suppose. Wow.
So he's brainwashed into believing he deserved this shunning.
Yeah, sounds like it.
In the position to have to shun me. They believe wholeheartedly in what they believe, and he was just doing in his mind what is right and what is just and godly. So I do not hold any grudges against them. I respect and revere those men. So I just wanted to get that out. So anyway, yeah. So after living out here for about a year and a half, he called me and said, I am being shunned. So now, whenever I went back to visit my family, I could fortunately still visit with them. It was just things were a little different. Like they couldn't take anything from me. Like I couldn't pay them for anything. They could give me stuff. They could always give, but they couldn't take anything from me. And then when we ate, I could not, as Amish families do, they send bowls around the table, right? You know, bowls of mashed potatoes and gravy, and I could not take out of that bowl and put it on my plate and then pass it to my siblings or mom and dad who were members of the church, because I don't know if that means that that's tainted now and they can no longer eat out of that bowl. So what happens is they dish out the food for me. My sister got married while I was being shunned. So when I went back, I sat in a table full of Amish people next to my mom and my dad, and my mom had to dish out all my food and then pass it on for me. So I couldn't take the bowl of mashed potatoes and give my right. She had to do that for me and pass it on. Because if I would have done it, the person next to me would have not been able to eat out of that bowl.
What?
I was still able to sit.
That's crazy. Tainted by what?
Oh,
Like, what?
and
What are they scared is going to happen if you take an object off that person?
maybe you'll follow the lead of the shun person. Maybe you'll be just like them. But something else, like I want to point out something else is that within like Amish communities, like people that have money, like in some communities, people that have money and pay a lot of the church's medical bills because they don't have insurance or whatever, they'll get away with like all kinds of stuff. Like they'll just turn a blind eye to whatever they're doing because they're good people and they can basically do no wrong. Like the kind of like the pretend that I guess they're just better people than the rest of the community.
But like, he's talking about literally about mashed potato. Like how? So if another Amish person takes that mashed potato after him, he's literally corrupted that person.
Yeah, probably.
Oh my god, that's ridiculous.
Well, and you want to know what my community is like? If you're
Yeah.
shunned, you can't even attend the wedding. Or if you do attend, you won't be sitting at a table with everybody else. They will set a separate table for you to sit at. When you go to church and you're shunned, you're set off to the side. If you're with your family will set a separate table for you to eat.
And I've actually taken my jumper off. This is making me warm.
It's making you what?
Warm. It's kind of like, I think the whole audacity is getting me a bit worked up, and I'm just like I'm a bit hot now, so I've actually taken my jumper off.
You're like, yeah.
You're like, really?
You see why it's bothering me a little bit?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sit there and have conversation with these Amish people.
Oh, in my community, they don't have conversations with you unless it's like basically to like try to admonish you to return and repent to the ways of your youth. And I'm not saying that this doesn't happen because I have friends who they can go visit their family and their family won't really shun them the way they're supposed to. But like also like if the church found out, like they would probably punish their family for not properly and appropriately shunning them. So
Yeah.
how much of that is that? How much of that is the classism? I don't know.
It was just really kind of awkward. So shunning, it didn't really affect me. I knew it was coming. I knew it had to happen, and it didn't.
Wait, why did it have to happen?
Exactly.
I just can't.
And this was just because he stopped going for 3 months.
And here we have a comment. So basically,
Yeah.
he's just justifying the Amish shunning. Yes, Rhea, that's exactly what he's doing. And it gets more disturbing the more I listen to it. Yes. Well, let's see what else we
Didn't
find
bother
out.
me. It's just what it is. It's just how they operate, I guess. And stop chewing on the phone.
Huh?
The cat. Tell you what, I don't think she'll ever grow up. She should be mature by now, but she doesn't act like it. Anyway. And after a year and a half, that same bishop talked to my dad, and my dad knew that I had been attending a church. And the bishop said, well, I think it's time to lift that shunning from him. if he's okay with that. And all he has to do is just have his preacher contact me, and then we can do that. So what I had to do was I had to get the pastor of our church that I was attending, still am attending, to write a letter to the bishop stating that I am a upstanding member of the church. So, and I sent the letter, and the shunning is lifted now. So family contact continues on as it was before. And some other things I remember as a kid when my dad.
Hold it. Stop, comma, pause. Like, that almost sounds like he joined another church that is just a more liberal version of an Amish church. Because that's common practice because inside the plain communities, you kind of have like this thing of like, they don't, they have this term called Sedina Net Mitnonon. It kind of means they don't associate with each other. So like if they have church stuff going on, like they wouldn't seek counsel from that other community's ministry, because, or that other community that they don't associate with, it doesn't, they're not considered like allowed to just go there, right? They go there, and then like if they whatever, they'll be not shunned anymore. Oh, let's look at this. Sounds exactly how my parents tried to justify how they were treated. I hate this normal comment. That's just how it is, or that's just how they do things. Yeah, and it's really like, well, this is the Amish way, etc. Like that's just how people dismiss like some of those things. It's really ridiculous, and it's quite frustrating, because just because that's how it is doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
It's still a human rights violation. It's still a constitutional violation. You're literally trying to justify that.
Yeah.
But anyways, I lost my train of thought.
So what would he have to do then to prove that he's an upstanding Amish person to have his shunning lifted?
Well, like he said, I just had my minister write a letter to my bishop, and my bishop lifted the shunning. But that's common when you church hop, because inside of the communities, there's no other recourse for them. Like if you want to have any form of individuality, you just church hop. There's a lot of people that church hop. They go from church to church to church, and when they don't associate with each other, then what they do is they'll just go, and then the other community will put them in the bond, and then they'll lift the bond once they're like an upstanding member of the new church sometimes.
Right.
That's all that is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That sounds like a good plan though. So you can just keep hopping until you find somewhere that accepts you more than another place. That sounds pretty convenient.
Well, yeah. It's just, but that's the only form of like, control that you have over your life, really, because the ministry makes the rules for each church. Not like they write what's called an Ordnungsbrief, which is it means it's their rules. They write that and they revise that at the communion that he's talking about. They have a church service, a special church service that goes with that. Twice a year they revise it.
Right.
My dad had a harness shop where he built harnesses for buggy horses and draft horses. And I remember a guy coming in who was in the bond, who was being shunned, who bought a bunch of horseshoe supplies. And I remember my dad, he brought it up to the counter to pay for it. My dad said, I can't take your money. Here, you have it. Like, just take it, right? So my dad could not take money from him, but he could give it to him. And it happens, in stores, fabric stores. There's actually an Amish, I think it was kind of stupid, but there's a lady that had left the Amish, or a man that had left the Amish. They went into a fabric store, and they were at the time in the being shunned, so they tried to purchase some items, and the owner of the fabric store said, "Here, I can't take your money. Um, take the items, just take them." And this couple that was being shunned kicked up about it, and they raised a big old fuss about it, like they were being discriminated against. Now, I, I don't think that was right. I don't agree with the shunning, but there's no reason to raise a fuss.
Raise a fuss.
So he doesn't agree with it, but let's not disagree
Let's
with it.
not raise a fuss. And I also want to tell you that I have an exact opposite experience. And, I can't go into like the Amish stores around the community that I came from where people know who I am. They won't even sell anything to me and they will not gift me anything. They will tell me I have to leave, and then they'll have a sign posted that says they have the right to refuse service to anyone. Literally.
You can't even get free stuff. That's what.
So I can't even get free stuff. I want my free stuff, fool.
No way.
I want my free stuff. For reals. Can I get it too?
So can't they just do like a contribution box or something that people like that can just put the money into, or is that still taking the money from them?
That's still taking the money from them.
Right.
But either way, I would like my free stuff. No. since he's claiming that this happens, I want my free stuff. So where do I gotta go to get my free stuff? Anyways.
So anyway, shunning is to be done in love, which was the case with me, and it's the case with a lot of okay, I guess it's a cat wants to play with my mic wires, and it is the case with most people in our community. I'm not exactly sure. I wasn't in the community or in a member of the church long enough to realize how it worked fully, but I think if a member sinned and wanted to confess his sins, they would come to the bishop. They would go talk to the bishop and be like, "Hey, I sinned. I want to confess." So the bishop, next Sunday after church service is done, he would kick out all the non-members. So all the people that hadn't been baptized into the Amish church, he would tell them to get out, which was mostly just kids. And then they would have that member. I don't know if the bishop did all the talking or if the member actually confessed, but then, and if the sin was
okay, one, you sin as an Amish person, more than likely there will be a deacon and a minister, or a deacon and the bishop that will come. It'll be 2 or 3 men that will come and have they do what's called an orede. And what that is they're going to come and talk to you about your sins.
Right.
And secondly, what he's talking about, he doesn't know if he wasn't a part of the church for this. Like he's talking about, he doesn't know if the member actually confessed. Some of these vary a little bit, but there's very little variation between it. Usually they list off the member's sins, and the member also leaves with the non-members, basically the children. And then the church like talks about all their stuff and they add to it. Kind of like it's an opportunity for people to add more sins to your list of things to confess for. And so when you come back, they tell you about these sins, but you don't know who said it. And it's then added to your confession.
Right.
At least that was my experience.
And obviously they keep records of all these confessions, because I know Jehovah's Witnesses have like the elders have a literal file system where they have like cards where they have what they call publishers, and they write everything on these cards, so they keep track of people, of what they've done and how many hours they've preached for, and all that kind of shit is all recorded. And then if they hop to another congregation, then that card is forwarded to that congregation, so they know exactly what this person, what their reputation's like, and how they stand within the organisation.
Wow.
Do the Amish keep records like that?
I don't know. I was a woman. I can't be a minister or anywhere in the ministry, so I don't know their practices.
My dad was an elder, so he always used to have stuff locked in his briefcase. So I kind of always.
Literally.
I used to go in his bedroom sometimes, and I used to be like looking around his desk to see if I could accidentally see something sneaking. But no,
Wow.
it was always like in files and locked up in a briefcase. So yeah, kept very secret.
That's crazy. Just crazy. But yeah, I'm getting hot too, Emma. And this isn't the first time I've watched this video, folks. It's so deeply disturbing on such an internal level of like gaslighting yourself. Like, why would you gaslight yourself?
In it, there's such a lot in this, and we're only like 10 minutes in. Like,
And then like not only do you gaslight yourself, you're also like justifying the shunning that they did to you. And well, let's see what else he has to say.
Was bad enough. Usually the sinning member was repentive, obviously, because they went to the bishop. So then the bishop would, if it was a bad sin, maybe they would put him in the barn, shun him for 2-4 weeks, whatever it is. But the church would usually vote on it. If it wasn't that bad, they might have just taken the repentive.
Okay, stop, comma, pause. Let's talk about the church vote. I was a member of the church for about 2 years, and I never, ever heard anybody disagree with whatever the ministry put forth. And I know somebody that was a member of the church for like 12 years, 15 years, and they never heard anybody disagree with whatever the ministry put forth. And as a woman, I was told I'm not allowed to disagree because I was like, well, if the ministry says this, I'm going to say no in my rote. And
is it like the whole church get to vote on it? Because doesn't that mean that they also need to know what the person's done to vote?
that's why the bishop announces what sins the person has done, and the person leaves the room, and then they go around and they ask each person for their vote. And when they do that, they call it a rote. Rote is vote. When they do that, like I was told that I had to go with whatever the bishop says, or whatever my stepfather said, or whoever. Like when I get married, it has to align with my husband's and stuff like that. Like, are you serious? What kind of a sham of a vote is that? Is that an actual vote?
No, so why don't they just remove the women out of church and just say you're not going to get a vote anyway, so you might as well just.
Well, and then not to mention, like, if a man were to, like, go against the vote, like, what would happen is they would probably be the next person confessing. They'd
They'll
be
be the next person voted on.
exactly. So, yeah, just be aware of that.
See, because like in the JW community, it's all kept secret. Like nobody knows what they've done. The only thing that used to give it away is they'll get up and they'll announce, say, so and so has been disfellowshipped. Apparently, they don't say that anymore. They say so and so is no longer a Jehovah's Witness. But then they would do what they called a special needs talk, and it would have a topic. So if it was on a sexual theme or a smoking theme, or you could always kind of guess what that person had done anyway, because it kind of give it away. But they would never like state publicly or tell anybody else what this person had
Oh
done.
no, they state publicly list your sins, and then the other thing is when they go around and they ask for that vote, like people will add to it. See, I had to confess, I was a Jezebel. I was a built, wild, bad Amish girl. And so, like, the, the thing is when I confessed, they went around. I left the church. They did the vote. And when I came back, there was like 3 other things added to my list of sins that I had to confess for.
What the other people had dubbed you in for?
Yes.
Oh.
Anyways.
See, I was always like, people always run into the elders about me. Emma's done this, Emma's done that. And it got to the point where after our meetings in the hall, sometimes they'd have like an elders meeting in this little back room. And we'd be waiting to go home and we'd just be waiting for ages. And then they'd come out and I'd say to my stepdad, "What have I done now?" And he'd be like, "I'll tell you when you get home." Because I knew in the last 2 years I was in, and most of their elders meetings were about me because people were just dying to like just dubbed me in for every fucking thing I did. Like I never confessed to nothing ever.
Yeah. So we have a few comments, Emma.
Okay.
This lady named Clara says, "My goodness, I'm so free. I'm so glad I'm free from all of this BS. Amish equals complete ignorance. The community needs a serious meta updating." Yes,
Yeah.
Clara, me too. Me too. And I really hope that like people watch this and understand that like part of my the reason I can't let it go is because it's such serious misinformation that falls in
Mm.
lines with, here's the other comment, what's the point of his video? Romanticize the Amish lifestyle? Well, yeah, Rhea, that's kind of why I can't really let it go because
And it's all
the
sorry.
the
Go.
things that he's saying are just justifying the shunning, and it's like, but why? Why? How? How can you sit here and you get out and you have obviously know that there's something wrong with them because why did you leave then?
Mm. He's going to also damage other victims that watch his video because some are going to end up feeling bad that they don't feel along with what he feels. So they're going to make he's going to make them feel guilty. Like, why can't I see it as something that should have happened?
Yep, that's true too. And then they're going to question their self-worth and are they,
Yeah.
you know, are they worthy? They're going to feel the other part of it is it can really send them down the spiraling path of like hearing the I think we talked about this. Don't Jehovah's Witnesses have like the double talk, like the because those those things are pretty they can be pretty vague in Amish talk, but they are definitely present. Like you can hear those. Like hearing this can send you right back there where you're hearing that, and that I don't wish for anybody. That's pretty
Yeah.
terrible.
And I'm just thinking he doesn't look very Amish. Is that me being
He could
biased?
be New Order Amish. He could be Mennonite. He could be, I don't know. I think he says it in one of the comments that he might balance rock ministries. Okay. He might have even started his own church. Who knows?
Mm.
I don't know.
Member and said, okay, you repented, you confessed your sins, you're good. So it's something that is always done in love, and I wish I knew more of the details. Maybe some of you other ex Amish members can help me out in the comment.
So here's a question that I have. How is it done in love when it's legitimately something that tears apart families and makes people want to kill themselves because it alienates them, gives them a loss of their entire community and everything they've ever known?
Exactly. When he said that earlier, that's why I was like, yeah,
And
right.
I can still recite the confession ritual. You get on your knees in front of the church, the entire church, in a position that both the men and the women can see, because the men usually sit in the living room or on a separate side, and the women sit on the other side. And so you have to be in the center of the entire congregation of church members, and you get on your knees and you say, "Ich kann bekennen, sie fehlt habe, Gott nicht mehr Geduld halte und spreche was es sorgt, so chiot bist du her." And that is translated to, I acknowledge that I sinned. I ask for patience with God and the church, and I promise to do better from here on out. That's your whole confession.
They'd never get
Thanks.
me to say that ever.
Huh?
They'd never get me to say that ever.
It was easier to say that than it was to conform.
I guess.
Takes 5 seconds, right?
I would have like my fingers crossed behind my back. Like, yeah, I don't really mean
Yeah. Anyways, we should probably finish
Comments,
this.
because I'm not exactly sure how that all worked. And obviously, in other communities, it was probably the shunning was probably a lot worse. I don't know. I do know like that. I've heard the story of a kid who left his family, and years later he was being shunned the whole time. Right, years later he was on his deathbed with cancer, and his parents refused to come see him. They were not allowed, probably by the church rules or the church bishop, to go see their own son on his deathbed. Now, I do not see the love of Christ in that at all. You know what I mean? That's pretty obvious. Is that true? Was that a true story or not? I don't know. I didn't know any of the people. I don't. I could see that happening for sure. So the shunning and the church discipline. I do not agree with the shunning part so much. Um, I think a lot of where they get one of the one of the verses that they use is, let's see if I can find it here. One of the verses that they use for um, the reasons that they shun is 1 Corinthians 5:11, where it says, "But now I am writing to you not to associate with anyone who bears the name of brother if he is guilty of sexual immorality or greed, or is an idolater, reviler, drunkard, or swindler, not even to eat with such a one." Correct me if I'm wrong here, guys. I know there's some of you smart Bible guys out there, but I think what Paul was saying in that context is, if a brother who claims to be a Christian is openly sinning, that we are not to be um, associating ourselves with that, right? So let's say a brother is openly getting drunk all the time. The Bible's clear that um, drunkenness is a sin. Now, I understand we can drink, we have the freedom to do that, but not to the point of drunkenness. So if a friend.
Okay, stop, comma, pause. 1, if you're listening to this and you have an alcohol problem, probably could use some medical help. Alcoholism is a disease. You can't pray it away. That does not just go away. Please find some medical help. Thank you. Um, and here we have somebody talking about he sounds like a parrot, just saying, because this is exactly what we were brainwashed into believing or silencing the shunned members. This is how it's always done in love, or how we always do it. And if you don't want to be shunned, then be submissive to the church. Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly it. And I fear that like people will hear this and they'll start, yeah. I just want there to be like an opposing view somewhere. Does that make sense, Emma?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who claims to be a Christian is doing that openly, and we talk to him like, hey, you can't do that. You're a believer. You're not to be getting drunk all the time. That we're supposed to not associate, not be seen with one of the, not be seen with him. Like if we go along with him and we hang out in bars with him while he's getting drunk, we go fishing with him while he's getting drunk, while we, other people see that, and it's not a very good witness on our part to be okay with that sin. I don't know if I'm making myself clear here. So there is a time where we need to set a brother aside, or try to correct him, right? But I think is it Matthew? I don't know. Help me out, guys. Where it says, if a brother offends you, or if a brother is sinning, we need to personally go to him and say, hey, look, what you're doing is wrong. And if he's repentive, says, yeah, I know, I'm sorry, can you help me with this problem? That's awesome. Life goes on. We help each other. We're supposed to build each other up. We're supposed to be there for each other. But if he doesn't repent of his sin, then we need to go with him with 2 or more people, I think is what it says.
Does this sound familiar, Emma?
Oh yeah.
Like 2 or more people? Yeah. For those who don't know, Jehovah's Witnesses have a like 2-person like something rule where, like, if something happened and there wasn't the two witness rule, like, even so far as, like, if two people didn't see it, it didn't happen.
Yeah, including child rape.
Oh, speaking of, didn't he say, like, a few minutes ago that sexual immorality was a reason to shun people?
Yeah.
So, what would Jehovah's Witness consider sexual immorality?
Um, anything to do sexually with another person when you're not married.
Okay, that's fair. Part
But
of
then
me,
they have something as well called porneia, which they bring in other stuff like touching each other and watching porn and that kind of sexual stuff as well. But I think strictly immorality is like, I think that's actual proper sexual interaction.
well, see, part of what infuriates me about that is, like, legitimately, so if you have sex with consent and you're not married, that would be considered sexual immorality. If
Yeah.
you wear a dress that maybe exposes a little bit of cleavage, that could be considered sexual immorality. In some communities, that extends to showing your elbows. But it also falls under the category of, like, if there's a pedophile, that falls under sexual immorality. If there's a rapist, that falls under sexual immorality. And so I just don't understand how you can justify using that to, one, like, you socially isolate people and you cast them out for you for, like, what did he say, 2 to 4 weeks, which actually I've heard I've known people to be gone for like 6 months and still be in the community and trying to conform and stuff like that. So it
Mm.
depends, that again, the length of it, the severity of it, like, it can depend on your ministry. But at the end of the day, how does that prevent a pedophile from reoffending or a rapist from reoffending? And
Exactly.
it goes back to something I said in 2004, which is, if you drink to the point of drunkenness, you get the same punishment as a pedophile or a rapist.
It's
Wow.
ridiculous, isn't it? It's like that in the Jehovah's Witness organization. Like, you can be disfellowshipped for smoking a cigarette and not be sorry. Like, I had adult consensual sex and I wasn't sorry about it. But then you've got someone who rapes a child and says they're sorry and they're allowed to stay in the congregation. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. And I think that's a sign of, like, when people truly break away from the church and they kind of start understanding what the church did to you or what the hall did to you, um, and how it taught you to think a certain way, and they start rewriting that in a way that feels like they're not gaslighting themselves. Oh,
Mm.
hey, look at this comment. My brain just exploded on this Bible verse. If that is the verse is used to justify shunning, then why are they not using on those that rape and molest children? Oh, good point, Rhea. That's another one. Is, like, sometimes they will have the victims of, like, they'll have a 17-year-old child confessing because they sinned greatly because they enticed somebody to rape them, but the rapist will never confess and they'll still remain a member in good standing.
I hate
And they'll
victimization.
call it having sex. And it's like, it's not sex between a 28-year-old and a 14-year-old. That's not having sex. That's called fucking rape.
In it, like when the Jehovah's Witnesses say to me, the Bible says to forgive, I'm like, well, what about also Matthew, where it says basically, if you harm a child, you're better off having a millstone put around your neck and thrown into the sea. That's how the Bible sees messing with children. Yeah, and then in the next breath, you're telling me, but they should be forgiven. No, you can't fucking cherry pick from the Bible what you want to live by. You live by it all or not at all.
Yeah. I felt like there's a lot of cherry picking going on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what else he has to say. We're almost done.
And if he's still not repentive, then he's supposed to be brought to the church. And it does happen. And Amish people, I think, kind of have this idea that nobody really gets punished in the English churches. I hate that word English, but the non-Amish churches, that there's no church discipline, but there is. It's just a lot of times we don't find out about it because most of the time a brother will be repentive and they'll be like, yeah, I'm sorry, and then the problem is taken care of. It doesn't.
So, if a pedophile confesses to you and says, yeah, I'm sorry, it's taken care of? Excuse me!
I have no word.
It's not that often that it goes to where the brother is actually kicked out of the church. Although that has happened in our church, where they had to, a person was unrepentant and they had to tell him that he can't be in leadership. He can't be acting as a member of the church. He's still welcome to come and listen, but he can't be a part of serving in the church because he was unrepentant. I think where Amish people go wrong is they shun people for things that are not biblical. For instance, I was shunned.
Holy guacamole, I can actually agree with him on that. They do shun people for things that are not biblical. Finally, something I can agree on.
For leaving the church, right? I had made a promise to uphold, I had made an oath to uphold and follow the rules and the ordinances of the Amish church. Now, those rules and even that oath itself is not biblical. When I left pursuing Christ. I did not leave pursuing sin, right? I did not leave pursuing worldly things. I left pursuing Christ. So I think a shunning in that way is not justifiable. And I think shunning people.
Oh, so he's better than all of us who did not leave to pursue Christ. Like if you leave because you were abused and you want to be safe, it's now biblical to shun you. Okay. Wow. Sorry, not sorry. That's just wrong. He is no better and no worse than anybody else, and that either way, the shunning is wrong.
Because they drove a car. I don't know if that ever happens, that people get shunned for driving a car or for doing things like that. I don't know that happens, but if it does, that's not justifiable because
I can verify that it happens. Thank you.
Cars are not a sin according to Scripture. I had a thought. Anyway, so I think shunning is done in the wrong way in that sense. I think shunning would be okay if it's an actual sin of the Bible, if it's drunkenness, if it's sexual immoralities, if it's name them all. If you're sinning, then yes, there is.
So, can we also hang a millstone from somebody's neck if they're a pedophile and throw them in the pond?
Exactly.
That's what I want to know.
There is a spot for church discipline.
Say that again.
He doesn't seem to know a lot. Like, he keeps referring to things and then kind of being like, I'm not sure if that's right or that's happened, or he doesn't seem very founded in a lot of what he's saying to me.
And it's almost like I wonder if he believes what he's saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just when they take it outside of that and they shun people for the man-made rules that they have added to the church. My cousin Velda, I just did a Zoom meeting with her. My cousin Velda goes into detail on that oath and how it affected her. I'll be posting that video. That's going to take a little bit more to edit, but I'm going to be posting that video soon. I'm excited to show to put it out there because it is that oath that you make to stay with the Amish church to abide by its ordinances and rules is a huge stronghold on Amish people, and I'm not going to spoil it. So just be looking forward to that video of when she talks, because she dug into it deeply, and because it affected her, and I'm just excited to show that video. So I don't know. I hope that explains it to you guys that were confused in the comments when I did say I was a member of the church and then left. And then I'm talking about visiting my family, right? It didn't make sense, and I understand, because there are church districts where once you leave, that shunning will probably never be lifted, and they will probably never be able to see their family. That just wasn't the case with me, fortunately. I have a very good relationship with my brothers and sisters, and my mom and dad. I probably won't after they figure out that I'm doing a YouTube channel on Amish people. That might get a little rocky. It sucks. That was my biggest worry, is hurting my parents with this, and I hate doing it.
So, your shunning was lifted, and yet you can't live freely because, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Raya's saying exactly what was said. Yeah.
exactly. Was he really Amish? Because he doesn't seem to know a lot. Well, that is a question that I have too. Is like, it seems like he's very he's not confident in when he talks about his Amish experience, in a way. Like, I don't know if he's struggling for words, he's having issues with the language barrier. Is this something, because we didn't speak English in our homes. So, but in the same token, like most of us that are out, like we have been practicing using English and really just explaining this, like, to people who don't know any better. I don't know, Rhea. I have no idea. I don't even know who this person is. I just know that somebody sent me the video. It's kind of been like eating me up, and I just really didn't want people, like Emma said, to watch this and like be so triggered and sent back to believing that this is what they deserve and they asked for the shunning and it's their fault and all of that. I don't know. Huh?
Maybe this is why he's taking it all so lightly, because he doesn't know so much, so it's not psychologically affected him to the extent for him to really realize what goes on. Because when some people leave the XJW community and they come into my group and they learn about things that have happened to people, they're like, oh my god, and it builds up this more, what's the word, not hatred but disliking of the organization. So maybe he hasn't gone through and know enough to actually feel that yet, and that's why he's just so light-hearted about this shunning thing, because he doesn't know deep down the effects of it or felt it properly, like, lots of people has. He probably hasn't looked into like suicide victims and what people get shunned for. So he's just like,
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is like, it's concerning to me because it's like people are watching this video. People are watching this video, and they're, there's people that will believe it because, again, anybody can make a YouTube video.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they'll believe it as like the absolute truth. So I just think it's important to know that, like, not everybody that was born Amish agrees with this video.
You should label it as your rebuttal to this and then see if he watches it. That'll be interesting.
Ha! Oh, yes. I should put it in the comments for him, huh? When we get done, let's put it in the comments.
Yeah, like I figured out through YouTube in the description, the first 3 hashtags you make come up at the top above the name of the video, and they actually come up then when people put the hashtags into YouTube. So if you hashtagged his channel or name,
Okay,
then people would find it that way.
that'd be awesome.
I don't want to do it, but on the other hand, I think God's put it on my heart to share the truth, the inconsistencies of their beliefs, the falsity of it. Um, I love the people that I grew up around. I love my family, and thankfully, I can't just. It's not up to me to decide whether they're saved or not. But I fear that they aren't because of their works-based salvation, and I am hoping to. That is the. I'm hoping to, at the expense of my hurting my parents, that I can get the word out, and that at least some can see the light and the truth that is in Jesus Christ. So, with that being said, if you have any other questions, just put them in the comments below. Email me at balancedrockministries@gmail.com. You guys are in our prayers. We appreciate your prayers for us. We just thank you for watching. Hit the like, subscribe.
Okay, so let me point out this. I made a comment about the alcoholism and the sexual immorality a day ago. No response.
Right.
And another thing, like, even though he's not officially shunned at this point, he still has some psychological fear. The things that he's talking about, there's no hope for your salvation. That is literally how they talk. That is some of the loaded language that they use to talk to the people that are in the bond and are being shunned.
Yeah, he's definitely not deprogrammed. Definitely not.
You don't think so? I don't think
No.
so either. And just maybe we should pray for him, huh? I mean, if prayer worked, I obviously wouldn't be a lesbian because they've been praying for that for more than almost 40 years. Still hasn't happened.
I haven't prayed. I didn't pray. I think the last 2 years I was in, so I haven't prayed for about 26 years. It never did anything for me. So.
Well, they've definitely prayed for me in the last 30 years and my gayness. But anyways, maybe we should just pray for him.
You must be so stubbornly resilient that it's not working on you.
Rhea says there is a rebuttal as needed. Okay, thank you, Rhea. I appreciate it. Thank you for listening and giving your input too. I really do appreciate that because for me, I have been terrified that somebody who recently is out falls upon this video, watches it, and just like believes all this like double speak and the baloney that he puts out. So hopefully if they see that there's more than one of us and just kind of like go research things. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Emma?
Am I still freezing to you? Because like to
Every
me,
once
like
in a while.
I sort out the sound and then like the sound's not giving me crazy feedback, but now my webcam was freezing.
The
I
sound?
don't know.
Huh?
That was a hell of a lot to unpack just in like a 20-minute video, and I don't know whether to feel angry at him or bad for him. I just like it was a whole mix of emotions.
Well, and I think part of me feels like really sad for him.
Yeah.
But then I also feel a little bit angry because you're for lack of a better term, being an apologist. You're
Yeah.
apologizing. You're apologizing to your community and your family for having put them in the position of, quote, having to shun you. They never had to shun you. That
Yeah.
literally never had to happen.
And another thing I noticed as well, which is also common in the XJW community, he said he's still got a good relationship with his parents. And I find that people who come into my group and say, get over it, stop being so bitter, it shouldn't, they're the ones that when you start talking to them, you find out that they've still got a relationship with their parents. So I find comments like that come from those type of people that again haven't been through the experiences that others have. So it's easy for them to just say the things you do.
Do you think they're also maybe getting a regular dose of the brainwashing?
No doubt, because the families are still gonna try and keep them there, aren't they? Make sure they don't go off the rails again and try and leave or whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
because sometimes I wonder, like my mum hasn't spoke to me for 24 years now, and even though that hurts me, some days I wonder, is that a good thing? Because they would just be trying to keep shoving the religion on me. So if we did end up ever having a relationship, I would say to her, you don't talk to me about the religion whatsoever, because that would not be, that would be no deal.
Yeah, see, and I completely get that. Like that's the whole reason, well, the whole reason, that's part of the reason that I completely cut contact from my egg donor, because I'm not going to lie and say that I don't have any contact, but I have very limited contact with like a few of my relatives, like maybe three, and it's
Right.
very, very limited, like maybe every couple of years. And if I disclose that, they will probably be brought up before the church. So I'm not going to disclose that because
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not trying to have people be confessing their sins in church because they don't shun me the way that they're supposed to every 2 or 3 years when I see them.
yeah.
But as far as the rest of them go, the ones that, completely do practice that, like for reals, it's very, very harmful. Um, when you sit there and you listen to um, your sister, for example, like my sister shuns me. My sister told me to never come see her again, ever.
Wow,
And I hadn't seen her in 15 years.
wow.
And part of me wonders like should I try again? But then again, like why would I put myself in that position?
Yeah, like it puts you through the whole heartbreak again. Like I didn't see my sister for 14 years after I left the religion, and then she came and found us. So the ball like was kind of always in her court, and I just wanted to let her know, if she ever did leave, like I would be there for her no matter what, because we were brought up in that religion since we were kids, so we didn't really get much choice. And when you're a brainwashed kid, scared and following a religion, then I felt like I couldn't really like blame her for the choices of shunning me, because
Yeah,
yeah,
but it hurts and it's
definitely
exclusionary.
does. Yeah, yeah,
And then another thing is that it doesn't, I want to point out that like most Amish shunning, it doesn't just affect the person that's being shunned, it also affects their family members. For example, like there are people who actively shun me, but they also like will actively refuse to even meet my child, even though my child is related to them because I'm shunned.
yeah. It's sad.
So it's not just harmful to the immediate person, it's also harmful to their other family members.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, do you see this comment? He's still trying to conform to the Amish lifestyle. He's scared of the backlash from his family.
Mm.
Yes! Yes! Totally. But anyways, do you have a parting message, Emma?
Um. Stop the shunning. It
Yes.
lit. It literally kills. Like at the end of the day, if you have to shun people, then your faith, your religion, your beliefs are not that strong to start with. Because if you can't associate with your family or friends because they believe something different to you in fear that they're going to corrupt you, then that comes down to you basically, not them.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'd like to add to that that if you struggle with feeling sad and depressed and alone after being shunned, please reach out.
Mm.
Um, there are resources out there like um, oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of it. I was thinking of the phone number for the crisis line that you can call. I can't think of the name of it. I'll look it up and put it in the comments. But
Yeah.
please, please reach out to somebody, talk to somebody, please don't sit there and struggle alone. There's also Facebook groups. I know that ex Jehovah's Witnesses Unite has some Born Amish members. I know that there's a group called Birds of a Feather. Um, there's people out there who will help you. So please don't sit there and struggle by yourself. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye. I think we're still live.
Wait, what?
It's still